There's a car that's so ubiquitous, so desirable in the car scene, the car people are paying $20, $30, $40,000 for these things. And no, it's not this BMW, it's this 30-year-old Nissan. This is my 1997 Nissan 240SX. I've had this car for almost 5 years, and in that time I've driven it only a handful of times, for maybe 100 miles total. In fact, it hasn't even been running in almost 4 years. But today, that all changes. Over the next couple weeks, we're gonna refresh this thing from top to bottom. We got a new engine, we got all sorts of new parts. We're gonna get it back on the road, running better than ever. I'm so excited, I can't even believe it. Welcome to Big Time. Now the only thing that can make that car better is this engine. This is Nissan's RB25, an engine that originally came in the Skyline and was swapped into that car before it broke. But they kind of have a reputation for breaking. They also have a reputation for sounding absolutely sick as hell, and the RB25 is significantly cheaper than its big brother, the RB26. But just like all superheroes, this engine has its kryptonite. These are known to have some oiling issues that can cause oil to pool in the head and cause starvation down at the pickup, which causes it to grenade, which is what happened to that old RB25 that I got sitting over there. Cylinder 6 rod bearing, gone. Luckily, there's a super tiny fix that just might help save my new baby. These are oil restrictors, and they do exactly what it sounds like. So they just got tiny little holes in them that are about half the size of the stock holes. So that restricts the oil flow to the head and reduces the pooling in the head. But to be totally honest, one of the biggest problems with these oil restrictors is you gotta take the entire engine apart to install them. Plus, there's like 4 other oil-related fixes we haven't even talked about yet. And since the engine has to come apart, we might as well clean and rebuild everything we can. So let's start taking this engine apart and start the rest of our lives together. Find those later.
I already don't like it.
Why?
I just don't. You know, like when you start a project and it's just like, it sets the tone, and there's always one bolt where it's just like gonna set the tone for how crappy or good of a day.
You're gonna have to get a little thicker skin if you wanna work on stuff over here, because it's gonna be like that a lot.
It just already mad. No, I'm happy to be here working on your car.
Are you?
I really am. I love working on stuff. I was thinking about this the other day. I just enjoy being in the shop working with your buddies. It's a fun experience. Also, I'm like, hey, where are your tools? There's a lot happening right now.
Yeah.
I know, but it's like a lot. We got to relearn a lot of the things we took for granted.
Yeah,
so,
it's gonna be fun.
40,000 kilometer oil.
It doesn't look like it's full of metal. That's all I care about.
Yeah, that's good. Now we're getting somewhere. This is the second big bolt that I've just found.
Yeah, I mean, these things just shed nuts and bolts.
Building the motor?
Yep, tearing it down, cleaning it right now. You're gonna take it apart and fix a few little things. It's an RB25, it's an old Nissan motor. It's gonna go in this car under here. It's a 97.
Everyone wants to know about this thing. It's not an LS, so I don't care.
Thanks, man.
What did he say?
No idea.
Thanks for being a good driver, he sounded like.
Oh.
Or a good tipper. I gave him extra money.
Because it's on my card.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, now it's time to clean this beast. And for that, I've got this steam cleaner with some brass bristle brushes. I think it's gonna work pretty good. That with some degreaser going on, I think we're gonna have this thing looking brand new. It shouldn't take too long. It's pretty clean, to be honest. I'm starting to believe the 35,000 kilometers thing.
There's no way that's 16,000 mile
Why
engine.
not?
There's just no way.
Why
dude.
not?
It just no.
Why?
Look at it.
Yeah, it's clean as hell.
Pistons are gonna be as black as night, dude. The tops of those things are gonna have so much carbon buildup.
So what?
I'm just saying.
So what?
With the engine looking all fresh and clean on the outside, it's finally time to see what's inside. Mind you, I've had this engine sitting around for about 2 years now, so it might not be great.
They don't look bad. Good lobes, Jobe.
Thanks. Everybody's always said I have nice lobes.
You got the nicest lobes, Jobe.
Yeah, Jobe's lobes.
Got good lobes over here too. There's no scoring on them. The wear looks pretty good. No rough edges, so that's a good sign. Also, dude, your spark plug holes, this right here is the crustiest thing I've ever seen. That thing is gross.
It is pretty nasty. I didn't like to see that. I'm gonna be honest with you. Why is it so gross? Why is the sky blue, Caden? I don't know. Okay, while it does look disgusting on this side of the threads, on the important side of the threads, it looks okay, which is good news.
Just okay.
Hey, okay is all we're after here.
Okay is all we're after. We named the channel Big Time. Where okay is all we're after.
We're okay.
I mean, that's pretty gross. These aren't the best.
So when you pull spark plugs out of an engine, you can kind of tell a lot about that engine based on how they look. And first off, you'll notice that these are just disgusting looking, but that's mostly just corrosion from water sitting in the top of this engine. This hasn't been in a car in at least 3 or 4 years. What you really want is kind of like a nice tan color. These are on the darker side of that spectrum, but that's okay. I don't think, based on looking at these, that we're gonna find anything too devastating when we pull the head off. Really? Ooh. Hey, Jer.
Hey, what's up?
You wanna go to Harbor Freight for me?
Oh, sure.
That's my helpful boy.
What do you need?
Well, I need some big Allen bits. I think it's a 10.
I'll get just some extended ones.
Yeah, and
okay,
they
what
should
else?
have a 10. I need a tarp.
Okay.
Small one,
What
just
size?
to go under this. Just the
Oh.
smallest one they got, just to catch oil and paint. That's why the wood's there for now, but
Okay.
tarp would be better. And some foam paint brushes would be great, because I got some paint for this block.
Okay. Just a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm not from this area.
Right.
How far is Harbor Freight from here?
Very close. I can make a Harbor Freight round trip in 15 minutes.
Okay, I mean, that's not a little bit about time. Time is money, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't you go spend some money for me?
Yeah, I'm losing time and money. What size spark plug did you need?
I was guessing 5/8, but I don't know. Why?
I called you.
Oh,
I didn't get 5/8.
interesting.
Bye, Jerry.
I'm not going back. I'm not going back, dude. I'm not.
5/8, I think, is typical on a car bike.
Car. Uh-oh. Got it?
Yep. This is our first look at the inside of this engine. So far, I don't see any chunks of metal or any problematic bits, but we still have time.
Look at that.
Oh no. Oh God.
Is there metal down in the bottom of this pan?
I don't see any, but I don't want to look hard enough to find.
Ignorance is bliss, huh?
That's right.
It looks okay.
Oh, thanks. See, I told you. Oh, we don't need a flashlight. With no sign of metal or any bearings in the oil pan, I think it's time to take off the head and take a look at the pistons. So I want to get the head off and get the oil pump off. The trouble is that we need a sort of long 10mm Allen for the head bolts, and I don't have one right now. So Jerry just went to Harbor Freight. They didn't have one either. So we got a short one, and we're just hoping, really hoping, that we can get it down in there. I don't think we're gonna be able to. Do you want to put your money where your mouth is?
Okay, so I didn't need to buy those.
No, yeah, it was
So you did have a
wild
tool.
goose chase. I just wanted to get rid of you for a few minutes.
Yeah,
I
that's
do have a
great.
10. It's a ball end, which isn't necessarily ideal, but it doesn't really matter because I'm replacing these head bolts anyway with some.
Don't you need to do this in a
head
different, in a
studs.
particular order?
You know, that's probably a good
So
point.
come over here.
Okay, let's yank this head off. Yeah, we got some surface rust going on. That should clean up. Might have to get a little dingly ball. But otherwise, the pistons are intact. Some sitting water.
Sounds so good. What a great,
Well,
what a great bill of health.
we're trying to chalk up the positives. Dowel fell out. That's nice.
I mean,
Yeah, that
that'll,
side's a little rough.
that'll come up.
It should come off. I mean, when you like.
Oh, the
Okay, so if we got a clean spot here. You can still see cross hatching, which is good. So I do believe they're good cylinders under a little bit of surface rust.
Yeah, usually you'll see some where the piston
Yeah.
rocks, but
I don't see
that
nothing.
looks pretty good.
Yeah. She got good bones.
She's got good bones.
She just got some skin condition.
Yeah, you can tell this thing's been running pretty rich by the look of the valves themselves, but you know what? I don't see any markings on the face of them. They look pretty good. It looks better than the cylinders, that's for sure.
Hey, don't talk about my cylinders like that. All right, Eddie, now pull back and show us your frame. Okay, we got the head off, and I'm gonna be honest, things are looking a little less than ideal. I think we're gonna be fine with a little bit of elbow grease. We got these carbide tipped scrapers. They are very hard and very flat at just kind of a square profile on the front, and I think this is the nicest scraper I ever used. Okay, this is our first rod bearing on cylinder 1. Yeah, we got a little wear, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too concerning, just some normal wear.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Okay, let's look at our first piston. Yeah, looks okay. It's dirty. Okay, number 2, left the bearing behind. Looks about the same as the first. Batting 1,000. The rod bearings are basically the connection between your piston rods and the crankshaft, and they take an absolute beating. So the health of your rod bearings is a really good indicator of the life your engine has lived.
Same.
Number 6, okay, well that's good. That bodes fairly well. Okay, yeah, we've got a little bit of wear, but nothing out of the ordinary. These look perfectly normal. So before I go ordering some new bearings all willy-nilly, I'm gonna take some measurements so that I know that I'm ordering the right size bearings. So to measure that, we're gonna be using this. It's a micrometer, and it is a very precise instrument of measurement. So this is the 1 to 2 inch, you can see right there. And it shows you the tolerance, which on this is 1/10,000th of an inch, the 4th decimal place there. So what we're gonna do is slide this on here. Obviously you need to have the, whatever you're measuring cleaned off so that you're only measuring the part and not any dirt or chewy hair. And then pull it off and read it. Okay, that gives us 47.96536 inches, which lands in spec. That's good news, not altogether too surprising. If you look here, there are 2 different measurement ranges. So if you're sort of at this end of the spec, you get these bearings. If you're at that end of the spec, you get these bearings. So the only way to know that is to measure. And the only way to measure these kind of things at these kind of numbers is with a set of micrometers. With the bearings sorted out, now it's time to shift our focus to the block to get it looking new again. So we're gonna be painting it. We're gonna be applying some Pour 15 black engine enamel. All right, while we wait on the block paint to dry, I'm gonna get these pistons and rods cleaned up. These suckers are a little bit dirty. They got carbon deposits all over them, but I think they'll clean up pretty good. In fact, I know they will, because I already did one. We're gonna go from this to this with very minimal effort. I got this gallon of carburetor cleaner from my AutoZone, and basically all we do is dunk these in there for 20 or 30 minutes and wipe off all the carbon. Okay, our paint is dry and it looks pretty dang good. So now we're gonna take the masking tape off of it and see it in all its glory. And then it's time to clean up these cylinders. Oh yeah, well, it could have been more satisfying. All right, the block's looking good. Now it's time to make the cylinder walls look good. So I got this dingleberry of a tool right here.
I love those guys.
Yeah, this is a ball hone, and this is a pretty old school tool, but they still have a place. You know, when you want to just clean up your cylinders, deglaze them, put a new crosshatch on them for new rings and stuff to get things to seal up real nice and hold oil real nice. These are just what the doctor ordered. So I'm gonna ram this thing through each of these 6 cylinders, clean up the walls. So we're not gonna take off a bunch of material or anything like that because we're sticking with the same pistons, but we are just gonna make things look a lot better and clean up the little bit of junk that's going on in those cylinders. Ooh, got some oil on that lens. Yeah. It'll be fun to clean. So we've got a good crosshatch going and the cylinder looks a lot cleaner. The crosshatch is super important because it helps hold oil on the cylinder walls to keep everything lubed up, but you gotta find a happy medium. You don't want that crosshatch to be too aggressive or too deep or else your rings won't seal very well against the cylinder wall. And I think we got it figured out. So let's do another one. While I finish honing my bores, I figured it'd be a good idea to keep Jerry busy by asking him to finish cleaning my pistons. Boy, that guy can clean a piston, can he? God. All right, now that our pistons are nice and clean, it's time to throw some new piston rings at them. So I got a genuine Nissan set of fresh RB25 rings. So we're gonna be taking a few measurements and getting these things fit to the pistons and the bores and everything that you do to piston rings.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to keep the business afloat.
All right, so I just popped the top ring into cylinder number 6. This is a cheap little tool that you just use to get the ring down into the cylinder, and this confirms that it's nice and level and square to the cylinder so that you have actual, the actual end gap displayed, rather than if you had it a little cattywampus, the end gap will change. We'll take a feelers gauge and we're gonna start at just a hair over the big side of the spec. So right now we're at 0.35 millimeters, so that is just slightly over the spec, which I think is pretty good. All right, this one feels a hair on the tight side, so I'm gonna open it up just a little bit until this slides through a little bit more freely. I can get it in there, but with a little more force than you want. So let's file. Once you file a ring, it's good to go over it with a little file and make sure that there are no burrs, no sharp edges or anything like that. So that's what I'm doing now. Now she's good. Let's stick her in. That's more like it. Okay, on to the next. So since everything checked out measurement-wise very well, all the stock parts are very much within spec, these standard bearings should be perfect. Keywords, should be. All right, all the lowers are in the main caps. Now we're gonna put the uppers in the block. Okay, now let's throw this on that. So right now we are torquing down the main caps to the block with our new bearings in there. Then once these are torqued down, we will be ready to take our measurements for the oil clearance on the main caps, or the main bearings. Okay, now we're ready to take our measurements. So it starts not with the block, but with the crank. We're gonna take the measurement of our main journals, and then we'll use that to reference how much clearance we actually have in our bearings. So you're about to stand on the crank. Maybe shouldn't be on the ground. Okay, so that is the size of our number 7 crank main journal. So now we need to bust out another measuring device. Let's get the bore gauge out and gauge some bores. So basically what we're gonna do here is take this measurement that we got off the crank itself, zero the bore gauge to this, and then we'll take that zeroed out bore gauge to the crank and stick it in the bearing hole, and then whatever the difference is, which is what our oil clearance will be, will show up right up here. So what we're targeting for our main bearings is about 25 thousandths of clearance. 17 thousandths, that's great. That's at the upper end of the spec without going over. So that's awesome for bearing number 1. Now we just need to do that for the rest of them. And if we have any like major discrepancies, we can kind of swap bearings around and try to get the clearance that we desire. But the first one just worked out. So hopefully the next 6 will also just work out. So yeah, more measuring, let's do it. But good news on the first one. Great news, in fact. Okay, after measuring the rear 3 and the front 3, everything's good. We're at between 17 and 19 thousandths on all of them, which is pretty dang good, so I'm happy with that. Next things we need to do, we can throw the crank in and measure the center bearing that we couldn't measure with the tool. We'll measure that with plastic gauge and make sure that it checks out. It's almost like dental floss. It's just a thin little wire of sort of wax. You put it in there, you install your bearings, squish everything down, and then this will get squished out, which will relate to these sort of pictures here. It's in between 15 thousandths and 20 thousandths, which checks out. Everything else was around 17 to 18 thousandths. So that looks like about 17 to 18 thousandths to me. So that's great. Now we can move on to the rod bearings, and I'm starting to feel like it might work out. Probably shouldn't say that. Okay, for the rod bearings, it's gonna be more of the same. This is cylinder number 6, piston and rod, gently placed in the vise, and we're gonna put some bearings in it, install the cap, torque it down, then we'll do the same thing with the bore gauge and the micrometer, where we measure the rod journal on the crank, and then reference that to the bore gauge, and then check our clearance. So more of the same, and I'm hoping to find more of the same results, which is to say stuff that is good. Jobless. Okay, all the rod bearings are measured and they all measure to about 19 to 20 thousandths, which I'm very happy with. So that's a bunch of more great news. So now it's time to do like the final clean on the block, dry it out very well, and start putting this thing together. We are gonna have a rotating assembly in this engine in just a couple hours. I think, I hope, I know. Okay, if we've done our job right, the crank should now spin freely. Ah, yes, that feels good with no play. Nice. Okay, that feels great. Now it's time to get the pistons and rods back in this thing, and then we'll have a full rotating assembly back in the engine, and then we can finally get to actually what we're trying to do here, which is fix the oiling issues with the RB. So once we have the rotating assembly back in place, we can do that. And just a few blows, and in she goes. Okay, so we'll knock that all the way down, throw that cap on, and then do it 5 more times. What, dude?
Butterfingers today.
No, not me, not these oily ass. Okay, so now that we've got all the rods installed and torqued down to their initial torque value of 11 foot-pounds, now it's time to add that 60 to 65 degrees. So just measuring it out, running it down the line, and then the rotating assembly is in this sucker, which is a big step. Big step. All right, now with all those torqued down, everything should still spin freely, and it does. This feels great. And now that we've got the engine back in good shape, it's time to start actually addressing some of the oiling issues that the RB has. And we're gonna start with the heart of the beast, the oil pump itself. So this is an N1 oil pump, basically just got a stiffer relief valve spring, so it runs slightly higher oil pressure, which is great, but it still has one of the fatal flaws that the stock oil pump had, which is the gears. The stock gears are made of sintered metal, which is basically just like powdered metal compressed and melted down into shape, and they're known to explode. So what you do is replace those sintered metal gears with these puppies. A handful of different brands make these. These are from Boundary, and they're a stock style in terms of how they're driven, and they're just made out of billet steel. So they're super strong and they won't explode, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so I've measured all the clearances for our new oil pump gears, and everything's good there. So now it's just time to install these puppies. This is engine assembly grease, and I'm just gonna pack a little bit of this in here in between the gears of the oil pump, and that's just gonna help create a nice vacuum on first startup to make oil pressure happen very quickly, which is important. All right, now we're packed all full of grease, so now it's time to put our backing plate on, a little red Loctite on all these screws, chuck that sucker on there, and then this is ready to go on the engine. Should start cutting my fingernails so I have like a Phillips and a flathead, and number 1, number 2, maybe get a Torx going. Factory fresh. Between installing the upgraded oil pump and the billet oil pump gears, I'm feeling pretty confident in saying that this engine's never gonna have any oiling problems, which might be a jinx, but I don't care. Check it off the list. Okay, now it's finally time for our oil restrictors. These are one of the most simple things to install, and they're pretty ubiquitous in the RB world in terms of, you know, cooling down the oiling problems with these things. And they do just what they sound like. They restrict the flow of oil from the block up into the head. So if we look at the block here, we see 3 oil ports that send oil to the head. We've got this front one, and that controls our VCT. And, you know, gives oil pressure to the solenoid. And then these 2 here just go to the head and lube the cams and fill up your hydraulic lifters and everything else. Now, the problem with these is that they let too much oil through, especially once you upgrade your oil pump and have an oil pump that's flowing more or, you know, increasing pressure, that problem is exacerbated. So the factory ones, we're just gonna tap those deeper into the block, and then put these on top of them, sort of just how these ones are, just below the level of the deck. And with that, we've got our teeny tiny little oil restrictors installed. Okay, oil restrictors are installed. Just another piece of the puzzle, baby. A piece of the no more oiling issues, no more spun bearings, no more problems puzzle. Right? Right? We're becoming friends, right? No jokes. I will not tolerate a single joke.
Oh yeah, there's a little extra right there.
Okay. All right, I'm glad we got through that. I'm very proud of you guys. All right, now for our next oiling fix, we are gonna add a rear head drain to the head of the RB. Basically, we're just gonna get rid of this core plug right here. That's great. I love it when you have the right tool and it works. Okay, so we'll clean that out, then we'll mark some holes, drill them, tap them, be on our way. The head drain just gives any oil that might be pooled in the head a nice easy path to get back to the oil sump. Now we just gotta clean all the metal shavings that we just made and put inside the head out. And then the head's pretty much ready to go on. The only other thing we're gonna need to do is pop the cams out so that we can put our new ARP head studs in. Bolt the head down. Put the cams back in. And then we've got two halves of an engine back together. All right, now that we got the cams back in, time to put the old valve covers back on. Figured we'd reuse the valve covers from the old engine. Oh God. Just to keep the spirit alive, you know? That's right. Holy smokes, this thing is looking like an engine again, which is very exciting. This is really starting to feel real. And you know what? It's taken a lot to get to this point, so there's no turning back now, which is good because I need to put the oil pan on next, and I think we might have some fitment issues. Hot metal, baby.
No going back.
No going back now. Yeah, is this fun? Maybe. Is it scary? Yeah. You know, this is gonna work out just great. Okay, with that, this should come out. A little bit of persuasion. Okay, there's our old windage tray. Now it's time to talk about the trap door that we're gonna set up in this thing. The pickup lives here, so we're gonna box that in with some sheet metal, and then we're gonna add some trap doors so that oil can flow into the pickup but can't flow out. That trap door will help keep oil trapped around the pickup rather than sloshed all the way to the side of the pan, potentially experiencing starvation, which is exactly what we don't want.
So I made the little flap, or the door in this case, and we're gonna weld these nuts on this rod so that the door can, open and then close again over those holes Zach already made.
Took a little bit of work, that's true, but it was worth it for sure. I think this is one of the main things you can do to fix the oiling problems on the RB. Big ol' sump with a nice trapdoor setup. We should be in business. So now I'm gonna throw this on, and then it's time to deal with some turbo stuff, finally.
When's the last time you worked with those guys? Did he just hit you up on Instagram? Yeah.
It means the world to me and Jeremiah that you guys have been so supportive and so positive towards us launching this channel, and it means the absolute world to me that you're here watching this video right now. So thank you, I appreciate you. Now let's get this engine back together. Great. Okay, this is the exhaust manifold I have. I have no idea what brand it is. It just came on the car when I bought it, so we're gonna keep using it. I had to cut off the wastegate flange and weld on a new one for the new wastegate that I got. And this intake manifold also came with the car back when I bought it. This is just a knockoff Greddy intake manifold. Should be fine. Still got the fuel rail on it. And now the real icing on the cake. We got this Garrett GTX 3576R ball bearing turbo. This thing is so nice. Nicest turbo I ever had. It is, in honesty, a little bit big for my power goals right now, but we'll grow into it over time.
Yeah.
What?
Grow into it. How does that work?
When I, put forged internals in the bottom end and we can make 550.
You're taking this thing out?
Eventually, yeah.
It's an ultimate sick.
What do you mean?
You just had everything out. You
Uh-huh.
done it then.
No way, dude. I set out to prove that you could put together a reliable 400 horsepower RB25 in your garage with no machine shop, okay? We'll do that, and then we're gonna want more power. Wow. With that, I think this engine is ready to go in the car. It's been a lot of work, we did a lot of stuff, but I'm feeling pretty good about how this engine came together. And I think it's gonna run flawlessly. But while putting the engine together was a lot of work, we've got a ton of work left to try to get it into this car and get it running, which is what we're gonna do on the next one. We're gonna throw a transmission on that engine, throw them both in this car, and get this thing back up and running so that we can drift it. We've got some more mods and stuff planned for this car, but I wanna slide this thing around finally, and I don't wanna do it by myself. We wanna have an event out at Apple Valley Speedway in the future once this thing's done, and we want you guys to be there. So stay tuned for that, but that's what we're working towards. I'm gonna get this thing running, get it sliding, and I want you to come. So we'll see you on the next one when the S14 lives again.